Hey, Thrand here, and I'm proud to introduce the Ostrow Lednicki axe from a Polish fort. It was a fortification, an island fort in a lake in eastern Poland. In 1038 AD, there was a battle there led by Bretislav, a Czech warrior, and he destroyed the bridges at Lednicki, at the actual Ostrow Lednicki. At that time, we believe they were either throwing axes, because we found a lot of axes at this place. Over 150 weapons were excavated. Due to the designs like this one, he calls this the Old Norse Axe on Medieval Shoppe, I believe. I believe it's the Old Norse Axe or Old Viking Axe. And this is one of the designs that you see in museums, and specifically a certain one. This is a replica, or reproduction, just like I have of the bog axe. A lot of you will remember the famous bog axe, and I have the true artifact right here that was sent to me by Olafur Rolfsson. It was actually used on an analog ballistics shell head, like under this kabuto handhead. Got a weird thing going on here. But it was used on one as is, and it's got a very hard edge. It didn't mess the patina up much. It didn't damage it in any way that I can tell, but I was unable to test it on armor. So we had a replica made out of it with an actual iron by Adrian Watson, and he hammered this out painstakingly. And it is a reproduction of replica made out of iron with the steel inserted in the edge to create something like we see back there. We believe it's from Novgorod, Russia. We believe it was probably a Varangian guardsman, but the design could very easily be just a Slavic axe. I dubbed it the Torslav axe, and we've tested it in very many videos. It's actually pierced armor. I'll bring that up. We pierced this helmet. It's a transitional helmet from Medieval Shoppe, and we were able to pierce into it, and due to the way it was strapped at the time, I don't know if we could have raised it up higher with the strapping, it actually pierced the head slightly. That was enough to probably take the warrior out of battle. As you see, this one pierced here as well. And it even was able to cut into the helmet. If you look into the helm, we cut into the actual metal. It was a great video. You can go check that out on the bog axe, the Viking bog axe. And yes, these lower profile axes are Viking axes, although most people picture these big old broad bladed axes. If you look at areas like the Slavs had a lot of lamellar armor and a lot of mail armor, you see lower profile axes because they can punch through mail armor better, or at least do more damage to them. They focus more energy. It's kind of like using a military pick or something to punch holes in plate. Although it's not always as effective as everybody thinks. Sometimes you will get stuck in the armor and can't remove it. So those are the downsides. That's why we consider this an armor-piercing weapon. And we tested it recently. The video's in editing right now, and that's why I have the Iron Mountain Armory Tosei Gasuku Kabuto here. We hit it with this axe, the one that cut into 16 gauge. This is 18 gauge. And we actually have some cuts here. I'll be showing that in a moment. And we did have one weapon, which is a surprise. If you want to watch that video on Patreon for $3 later when I get it edited out, we had one weapon that actually went into the head. So the head we're going to be testing today when I remove this kabuto is already damaged. We'll show that, but not enough that we can't test this axe out today, the Ostrow axe, and see how effective it was. This was probably used as maybe a thrown weapon by Scandinavian, because they believe due to the type of weapons they found there was Vikings there, like Scandinavians, and we find these type of axes in Norway in museums, and Sweden, the same design. One of the reasons I believe that these were used for war, and people try to argue because this one has a hammer, that it was a tool possibly that was found in Novgorod and not a pure weapon. This axe here has no hammer, and the sleek design and everything, you clearly see that it was most likely used for combat. You could use certain types of weapons like this over adges and stuff to dig out wood when you're building a boat, but this one specifically, unless you were splitting really small timbers, which I guess they do sometimes, they use wedges and different shaped axes, it doesn't have a purpose other than being heavy. It's on a shorter handle, it'd be good for throwing, and it would do more damage to armor. So that's why I have tested many times and come up with the conclusion that these axes are better on armor than broader bladed axes that give you less margin for error, lighter broader bladed axes that act more like swords in combat to unarmored and lightly armored, leather armor clad, whatever they're wearing, multiple layers of cloth opponents, and act much better against lamellar, early mail armors, and even some forms of plate that was worn, such as helmets. So let's go ahead and check out our head here and see what's going to happen. We are going to be testing the same head that we used in the Patreon special that was inclusion of the Deadliest Warriors of History series that I did, starting with non-metal weapons. We had everything from obsidian to jasper or chert weapons, actually flint knapped, up to the age of William Wallace and the late century knights. We covered everything from William the Conqueror, the time of Ragnar to William the Conqueror, all the Viking invasion and Norman. We even did the Bronze and the Iron Age. So if you want to check those videos out, you're going to see all the damage we did to this kabuto here. But our latest Patreon special is going to explain this. We have holes in the helmet. These are mystery holes. I'm not going to explain where these came from. All I can say is it didn't do a lot of damage to the head, or we wouldn't be using it in this video. The head was, in my opinion, he was taken out through this helmet. I'm not going to say what weapon, but we hit here with the bog axe reproduction here and here. I can let you know that much. And quite interesting, actually. We've got the Mempo Yarari here. I'm going to go ahead and start taking this off. I wanted to show you all, this is the mystery weapon. I'm not going to tell you what this was. This is the only thing that pierced the head before we test the Ostrow Axe. We have some compression on the top of the head, which looks like it exposed some of the skull because of the Chan Magi that was up here that we removed, pushing down. And then over here you can see that our bog axe, Viking axe, to the kabuto, actually caused some damage to the head. I'm documenting this damage right here. And the reason why, we don't know what actually took place to the person, if he was actually wearing this, and we have a little brow injury from the kabuto itself rocking around. Documenting that so it doesn't get confused with the Ostrow Axe damage. But other than that, the head is in fairly good shape and intact. So as to save resources and see what would happen to this head using an axe very much like, they're almost identical in a lot of ways, except it's got a little more heft. The bog axe, see what it would do to the head without the kabuto on this specific head. We're going to go ahead and test it in this video in honor of it, and be sure and check it out on Patreon. I have my period reproduction of the Gokstad ship shield. It's actual proper thickness, but covered with heavy rawhide back and front. I've tested this in videos. If you want to check that out, be sure and check it out. I even sent a smaller version to Jarg Sprave so he could test it with his extreme weapons, and it proved amazingly protective, much more than anybody ever imagined, thinking that those are probably just decorative shields on the ship and weren't actually used just for the funeral of the Gokstad ship burial. But anyway, I'm going to be using that today with it because I'm going to talk real quick about axes and the way they function. If I were to use a longer handled axe and possibly something in the offhand and not a shield, or a really small shield like a buckler and something, instead of something so large that I can defend myself with easily, I would actually attack in such a way where the stick, the axe, and it goes straight out, I'm throwing it straight out in front of me, that I'd probably hit with this part of the axe first. So that's why axes are still shaped like this, even if they're designed where they can pierce by the point more easily. So this point can go in first, possibly. In the body, wherever you hit, this part can start cutting and pierce and slice in. If I'm using a shield, I don't necessarily have to do that. I can throw a shot over the top and drop it in on the point if I really want to. It doesn't matter as much because I'm using the shield to defend with. So if I've already knocked something out of the way, I can come in any way I want with the edge. And understanding how the edge works and the shape of the edge allows you to pierce plate, cut rings out of mail, stuff like that. Whether you're actually going to go through and kill the guy inside, you can still damage the mail itself. We've done it. But I'm going to start off with a hit, and one very much like, let's say I don't even have the shield. I'm going to try something like this, coming in with the point this way. The reason why is it's going to cut in differently. So we're going to go ahead and see what that does, and I'm going to try to reproduce the kind of hit that this did, but kind of hit in a new area. Oh! And that's exactly what we got. It went in and hooked. Beautiful. It's very wide, so it opened the head up, but if you see what happened, it kind of sliced its way in, just like I did in a video I did called The Science of the Bearded Axe. Even though it doesn't actually have a beard, it cut in the same way. But in this case, I think it's going to be easier to remove than the Kisari Kama did years ago when I got one stuck in the head. That's the thing about piercing items. Something that's low profile on an axe like this makes it go into bone and armor easily, but it doesn't get hung up as badly as if you were to have a spike on a later street weapon with these hard steel things. Okay, I'm using the shield with this one, and I'm going to show how if the point hits first, it will go in first, and it hits a little bit different because that's what we did on the actual kabuto in that video. If you want to go check that one out, you would do something like this to try to pierce a helmet, like I did with the transitional helmet, making sure the tip of the axe hits first with a very sharp edge. Using a shield with it, it's very easy to do this because you could have already parried whatever was coming in and you just throw your blade out at the exact same time you were intercepting an attack. Oh! Ooh! What happened? I came down and I was too far to the front and I chopped the entire front of the forehead off. Oh! That's just ugly.
That's an oops.
It's kind of an oops because I hit too far forward. I meant to hit about here. And since I hit here, we took the skull off, but we just took his whole forehead open. If it would have went further and took the nose off, that would have been hard. Let's go ahead and put that back. We shall try once again before...
It's got to fold down again.
Oh, yeah. Let's do the same thing. Oh! Let's see what we got here. This is something different. Since I was trying so hard to hit with the tip up high, I came right down through the side of the skull, opening it up. This is nasty. It just gives you an idea of how much force comes from the tip of an axe. That's just the tip. You would think that much hitting you in the skull, you know, might glance or not kill you, but that just ripped it right open. It was hard. I was hoping for a little bit further back, but of course this is a short-handled axe. I shall be standing here like I have the shield in a manner where I'm fighting, but he's thrown a low attack thinking maybe he can get my leg. In that case, I would roll the shield under, pushing his weapon in on him, and this would give me this opportunity to come in this great off angle. This is a reinforced spine, meaning that it's not going to be easy to cut as we do with some of the swords. It actually has a disadvantage. It was reinforced slightly because we didn't want any of the great impacts with the kabuto on there to snap the neck in the process. So it's a doubly reinforced spine, which is not impossible with an axe to cut, but this is also a lower profile axe, so it's more of a piercing axe to put holes in the individual body, not necessarily to do a clean decap like a headsman's axe, like you would balloon the axe out or actually flange it out. And that's another thing I'd like to speak of real quick before I finish. Some of the people are also arguing that Bronze Age axes and especially copper axes were very low profile axes. The reason why, if you broaden the blade by hammering it out or casting it, actually on copper and bronze, you would cast it like that, it weakens it. It makes it so the axe, if you were trying to cut wood and hard materials, that it's more likely to bend those points off and get dull and just bend over, fold over. Whereas you get into iron, or even in the Bronze Age when they had some hardened bronze, you will see that the Celts have broadened axes that are flat, and some people think ceremonial because they're highly decorative, but I think they were used against lightly armored people, because a lot of the Celts, a lot of times, will be running around, in stories naked, just wearing cloth. Maybe only the chieftains had mail, we believe, some skins on them, maybe on their back. So early Celtic tribes, honestly, the big broadened bronze axe blade would be effective. But if you start looking at the time period of like the Spartans and the early hoplites, the Greek hoplites, they did use axes, and sometimes in combat they would be lower profile axes, because trying to punch through armor, they're not very effective. Bigger, broader axes act more like swords, like I said, and they're better for that. But that's not an example of what happens when you get into iron and steel. That changes up the entire, the type of weapon you're doing. So using a lower profile head doesn't really help you any. It has a different attribute. And if you're not doing it for a tool for some reason, the only way I can think of it is a tool for damaging someone through armor, especially with no hammer or something like this. So I'm just saying it's not going to be the cleanest decap because of that lower profile, but I do not think that it was because the materials weren't of the quality they needed to be at the time to make an axe this way. Now what I'm going to do is, just like if I was fighting, that hit comes in low, you just have to kind of imagine it, and I turn it in so I have the opening. Ah! I aimed a bit high, but I went through the spine. Check that out. That is just nasty. We got to look at this one. I got all excited envisioning in my mind that the guy actually threw this low blow at my leg, and I just got it trapped and twisted it in there. This is into the actual spine. I was trying to make sure I didn't miss the spine. But this is a double reinforced spine, and we went through all that.
Into it and got
Yeah,
stuck in the spine.
the spine is shattered.
Anyone who can see this through this, as you can see, if he stopped moving it, the spine is cracked right down the center.
Oh,
You
definitely.
can see it on the film.
Right. I'm going to try sticking my finger in there and moving it so you...
No, you can actually see it on the film. That
Oh,
there's a
it's
giant
through the
crack
spine, yeah.
right through the spine.
That's devastating. This is one of the most impressive axes I've used in a while. Let's try again. We're going to pretend the same thing took place.
15-second cuts anymore.
Oh! Dang, we've done it again. Come check this out. Like I said, don't actually clean decap with this narrow of a blade. That is one of the reasons these type of blades, I believe, had to only be made for one reason. If I had a big broad axe, this would have been a pure decap clean through. Look like a sword
However,
decap.
it may not have gone through the armor.
Right, but this double hardened spine is making it difficult to pierce. Check that out.
That I don't think is the problem. You're not getting through all the gel because the fact that
It's
not
awfully
as
wide.
wide.
This is extremely hard gel. I did that
Yes,
on purpose, but that spine is gone. He's dead. There's nothing you could say except this man is dead. Ha. This is not going to be an easy decap, but that neck is gone. It is shattered.
I think you're not going to get a decap out of it. It's
I'm
going
gonna
to keep
try.
moving.
I know, I'm going to try. I will just go about it any way I see. Oh! And just so you know, we didn't lie, it had a reinforced piece inside. Which I don't think we ever truly hit. But we did cut through the main spine, and it separated, and you can see that here.
Aria, come here.
But I want to see that thing fall off. I truly, truly want to see that fall off. Because I know it's plausible. Oh! We almost got the head completely apart.
It's a bouncing bit now.
Yeah, I don't think at this point it's going to stay for us to chop it much more. But any of that would have killed the man. Any one of the hits would have done it. I think this was an impressive axe. The Ostrow axe has done more than I expected. It would be good for throwing as well, being on a shorter handle with a heavier head. And if you like to get up close and personal, like using maces and short axes, this one is perfectly set up. But if you would like to put a longer handle on it, go right ahead. If you can handle the heft and control the focus, because remember, the narrower or lower profile axes, better armor penetration, harder to hit on target, especially in battle, in the heat of battle, when you're all on adrenaline, like I was trying to do a specific technique, like I had trapped his blade up next to his body. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed our episode. Be sure and go by Medieval Shop and check out this wonderful Ostrow Lednicki axe. And as always, farewell.